Yate, welcome. Greetings, everyone. Happy March 26th. Happy Thursday. Welcome to today's episode, Medicine Tribe Television. Just a little fun thing to do while we're all at home. A real medicine segment. Featuring some special guests, just checking in with friends of mine from around the world, all walks of life, who are doing amazing things in their worlds. And today, I'm going to check in with my friend, Aubrey Marcus, the legend Aubrey Marcus. So I'm going to find him on here, and we're going to chat with him for a second and see how he's doing. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Let's find our brother. There he is.
Here it is. It works.
What's up, Aubrey?
Brother? How are you, my man?
I am well. I'm well. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Of course, man. Of course. Likewise.
You look good. You look healthy.
That's it. We've been getting some sun here in Austin, and I've been soaking it all up.
I know.
I'm getting my Pharaoh tan on. That's what I'm calling it.
Getting bronzed, ready for summer already.
Yeah, it's like I'm mummifying myself in pure sunlight. That's my quarantine practice. Self-immolation in sunlight.
That melatonin, yes, Yeah, it's pretty gray over here in Oregon right now. But I'm managing to also maintain the high vibes, even though the sun isn't as present. But
oh man, it comes from the heart. That's where the real sun is, anyway.
That's right. There it is.
I'm just getting it on my skin.
The Aubreysms. Those are the Aubreysms I told you. Oh man. Well, for everybody that's tuning in, thanks for joining us today. My special look. I get to turn the tables on you right now.
I know, man. I like it. I like it.
I woke up this morning and I was like, ooh, I want to like introduce him and like say some things about him and then ask him some questions because now the tables have turned and the bear gets to talk to the Marcus. I was like,
I still want to go back and pick up where we left off on that podcast.
Oh yeah, we've got lots of stuff.
You were just like singing songs and telling stories, and then I was just rapping and fucking. That was great, man. That was so fun.
I think we should have an episode where we go through some of our most profound medicine journeys.
No doubt.
You know, that'd be really fun.
People better pack a lunch. They're gonna need supplies. They're gonna need snacks.
Yeah, and some tissues, because not only will there be tears, but laughter. So much laughter. The tears of laughter of all those like aha moments that lead us into. Honestly, led us into the work we do today.
No doubt. You want me to tell you one real quick?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So recently, my probably one of my most profound medicine journey was with no plants at all. It was the darkness retreat I did, where I isolated myself in pure darkness for 6 straight days. And they haven't been able to prove the endogenous release of DMT in the brain because that would require a vivisection of the brain. They'd actually have to cut the brain open during that period, and nobody's going to sign up for that. So, but what ends up happening is for the first 3 days, you don't see any visions. You're just in the darkness, kind of mind versus mind, figuring it out. And they serve you the food. They like ring a bell in a dark hallway. So you're like completely blacked out. Can't tell the difference between eyes open, eyes closed. And you release a bunch of melatonin. And what they say is the melatonin is essential for the conversion into DMT. And no doubt, I've done ayahuasca a bunch of times. I've done DMT in every possible way you can, pretty much. And the visions started to come around day 4. And it was shocking. It wasn't like peak DMT visions, but they were just constant and incessant for 3 days straight, and it was like a really profound journey. And one moment in that journey, I'm familiar with Buddhism. I have a little Buddha behind me on one of my little altars here, and I have a lot of respect. I've been to Thailand, but I've never interacted with Buddha in any vision ever in my life. And I've been in lots of medicine space. And all of a sudden, out of the black comes this shining, smiling, golden Buddha. And I was like, and I was having a kind of a tough time, you know, I'm in the darkness by myself. I'm just wrestling with my mind and my thoughts and my doubts and my fears and everything. And I see Buddha smiling and I go, Buddha, why are you smiling? And Buddha just looks at me and goes, why aren't you smiling? And I was like, oh yeah. And then Buddha starts laughing. And I was like, Buddha, why are you laughing? And Buddha goes, why aren't you laughing? And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Did you laugh? Did you laugh?
That was it. It was like a mic drop moment. Like I had nothing else to say. I was like,
wow.
Okay. So we just chilled there for a second. And he was just looking at me smiling. And then he just faded away. I was like, I get it. That's Buddha nature. The choice to smile, the choice to laugh. That was crazy, man.
That's so great. That experience you had, though, being in the darkness, it was 6 days, you said?
Yeah, 6 days.
Wow. And then did they bring you food and water, or how was that for your fasting? Or?
Yeah, so they bring you, like, it was raw vegan food. They would drop it off in a blacked out hallway outside of my door. And to get everything black is actually like a technology. So they had like double door systems and everything was completely sealed. And they would ring a bell when the food was there, and they would mix up the times that they would serve the food because they kind of want you to not really know what was going on. But there was roosters outside, so I kind of had like an idea, and I could hear some roosters. But so that gave me some sense of day and night. But yeah, they would ring a bell, and then I would go out there and grab the food, and then fumble around, figure out what it was. Like sometimes I would chew things and be like, "What the fuck is this?" And it'd be like, "Oh, it's a dried mushroom." That'd take me like not like a psychedelic mushroom, but just like a regular button mushroom. And then you eat the food and then you drop it back off in the hallway and they pick it up when they get the next meal. But the whole thing, everything you're doing from start to finish is in the dark. So you don't get a glimpse of the light for that time. And I think that's what, you know, precipitates that kind of visionary state. But it was profound, man, because the last 3 days I was just in vision constantly. And a good preparation for the quarantine life. You know, it's like, the world is like a circus compared to the darkness. I mean, I can see things, I can talk to friends. Here I am talking to you, like in there, and it was silent too. So it's silence, darkness, and solitude. So it was like 3 different medicines that were layered on top of each other. And it's definitely probably the most profound journey I've ever been on.
How do you use the restroom? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so you memorize where it's at, you figure it out. Here's the thing, like I never got good at it. I thought I was gonna be like, you know how you hear like blind people, you know, they get good and they figure shit out and they count steps. I was bumping into shit constantly and like ending up in weird parts of the room and be like, where am I? And I think one of the problems was I memorized it, and they had a rectangular rug in the middle of this rectangular room that had like its little tiny bathroom. Well, so I figured if I followed followed the angles of the rug, I could find stuff. Well, at some point I tilted the rug at an angle because I must have like slipped on it or something. So the rug was oriented the other way. So I would follow it and I'd be like, why am I running into the corner of the room? Like, I don't understand. This makes no sense at all. And then they turn the lights on and I'm like, oh, the rug got shifted. Yeah, it was wild, man. And my third eye, like when you're in that DMT space, the third eye is so blasted open that like when I would eat the food, you know, it's all raw vegan food, so I could like see the vegetables sprouting in my third eye. And when I would soap up my hands to take a shower, like I could see the bubbles in my eyes. When I took a shit, I could like see the shit. Like I couldn't not see anything.
In your mind's eye.
In my mind's eye. Yeah, like everything was just, so it wasn't even so much that I missed the sight at that point because I could see everything so clearly, but I missed like the essence of things. Like I missed the essence of a tree or the essence of a person. And man, I missed music so bad too. You know, like you get in the silence for that long, like that first, when I got to play some music when I was coming out of there, it was like heaven, just listening to music.
You know, something similar that I experienced, where I've been experiencing, I haven't experienced it in that succession of days, 6 days in a row, but for the last 3 years, I've committed a 4-year practice of doing, on my birthday, a sweat lodge, a hamlecha, a vision quest. And where my family, my native family, comes to my home, and we have a ceremonial space here, and we prepare the fire. And essentially, like, we go in for 2 doors of the sweat lodge, but then I stay in for 24 hours, and
Oh, wow.
I fast for a few days beforehand, and fast while I'm in there, and it's essentially, discovering those same things that you're talking about. However, you're on the hill, essentially, as we would say. You're on the
Yep.
hill having your vision quest, and like, uh, uh, you know, so while you're in there, it's like, uh, it's as you're saying, like you go through all the struggles of the mind to
Mm-hmm.
overcome those struggles of the mind in order to tap into your heart. And man, the first year I went in there, bro, it was nuts. Like, my guides came in, my father and my grandmother, both who have passed away,
Mm.
came in that moment where I was like at a breaking point, because we do 2 doors, so it's pretty warm in there for a couple hours. But
Yep.
then once the rocks get cold, it's cold in there because it's February, which is my birthday, so it's like raining outside or snows out, and like I'm out there pretty much butt naked in there with like a buffalo robe,
Yep.
and so part of that whole experience is the suffering of it, right? You're on the ground, you're suffering, it's like cold, and you have to overcome the physical feeling in order to really touch in with the spirit.
Yep.
And in that moment where I was like getting really claustrophobic, so I was like, I need to get out of here. But I was like trying to like focus, and then your mind would be like, well, how much time has passed? It's been like 2
Right.
hours, or it's been
Right.
6 hours. Like, is it noon? Like, is it tomorrow already? Like, how much
Yep.
time? I'm sure there's more. I'm sure I'm like almost done, right?
Uh-huh.
um, but when you invite in that openness, when you finally do let that third eye open, and the spirits do come in, I was greeted by my father and my grandmother, who both came in. We sat down and we had a council, and we basically sorted out some like unprocessed conflict,
Mm.
and we were able to sort of discuss like how they were going to, or how we were going to move forward together and working together, from the realms that we both are existing in at this time. Um,
Amazing, man.
but just one of the stories, right? Like of being inside and being in darkness and being in that ceremonial space where we let go of everything and uh, go through the suffering to really bring in the heart and bring in the prayer that we're in there for.
That's it, man. And that's really what ultimately came, is that heart just getting cracked wide open and realizing how much I really loved people and how I denied myself the love. I mean, I recognize one of the moments that really just crushed me, was devastating. My mom has loved me as unconditionally as a human, any human that I've known could.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, there's some ways in which I wouldn't even let my mom's love in all the way, because I didn't feel like it was, I was worthy of it, or I was some way I didn't judge myself and deem myself worthy of just letting myself feel that love to that extent. And it was like I was starring in my own action movie called Hard to Love, just like keeping like just dodging all this love that was out there, like not gonna let you all the way in. And then but when you're there and you just let it pour in, and let the gates of your heart, which are bilateral, flows in and out at the same time simultaneously, when you let that flow come through, it's just so powerful. And it's just changed my orientation to everything, realizing that the biggest medicine that I can give anybody is to love them exactly as they are. Just love people exactly as they are, wherever they are. And that's a challenge. Like, if you see someone who's an addict, for example, you could love the version of them that's not an addict, right? And that will make them more ashamed of being an addict. So they'll feel like, well, if I'm not this, then I'll get love. But what really is going to support them the most in their process is to love them as they are, and then show that, no matter what you're doing, like, you're loved right here, right now, exactly as you are. Like, I love you here. And then from there, that's like the stable foundation from which they can grow of their own accord. but I've noticed like the ways that I put these subtle judgments on people, like, well, you know, I love you now, but I'll love you so much more when you reach your potential, when you reach your
like that
spiritual
passing thought
potential.
that you're having, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, something I wanted to actually ask you about too, because, you know, what the light that you bring to people, the light that you are, you know, you have such a big magnetic light, and like, you know, in your, one thing I wanted to ask you about was just how you feel in these times, considering so many people out there that have mental health issues, or, you know, addictions, or depression, or dealing with these things, that need support groups, that can't be around people right now. What kinds of things do you feel like are helpful for those kinds of folks to be focusing on in these turbulent times?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because when we're faced with challenges as a human species, we learn to adapt. And I think one of the things, we've been friends for a while now. We've never done this, right? So this is an adaptation that we're making, where we're able to reach out to people using digital means and connect in this way. And I've seen, you know, friend groups that we've never gotten on a Zoom call. You know, I've saved Zoom calls usually for business, or usually for these other purposes, but we'll all get on there. And it's not quite the same, but it's using technology for us to stay close in that way. And then when you start, you know, because you get a group of 10 of your homies together, like the group I went to Poland with, do all the ice baths and the climbing and the mountains with Wim Hof and everything. We get on there, and there's, you know, certain people who are just hilarious together, and we're all just laughing and joking and making fun of each other and talking about the serious stuff. But we wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for this universal kind of stressor, this universal restriction. So I would encourage those people to like look for these means that you can still reach out to your support groups and still like use the technology that's available to see their face and connect in those ways. And then when we do get a chance, you know, anything that's denied us, anything that's restricted, we're going to appreciate that so much more. Like when we can go out and we can hug people, man, it's going to be like fucking hug-a-palooza. Like, I don't know if anybody's planning Hug-a-Palooza, but anybody who's on this call who wants to plan Hug-a-Palooza, it's fucking going down, because people are going to hug the shit out of each other, you know, because we miss that, you know, and when we realize we miss it, it's going to be there. So,
dude, the Aubreysms are just so good right now. Yes, the Hug-a-Palooza, please, let's go.
Hug-a-Palooza, make it fucking happen. Make it happen. So like that, I think those are two of the things. And then, you know, it's an opportunity to develop and double down on those personal practices. And I feel like one of the things that has been really helpful for me is my breathwork practice. You know, I would do that maybe once a week, but now in isolation, I'm doing it 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times a week, and putting on my playlists and going through the deep breathing and the breath holds. And it's just allowing me to kind of melt through some of the emotions, because these are emotionally turbulent times. You know, and a lot of, whether it's addiction or whether it's avoidance or whatever pattern you're using, it's usually to kind of escape from something else. And to, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, it's an attempt to solve a problem. And so, you know, using these practices like the breath to kind of melt away the armor, so you can actually take a look at what the source, what the root cause of that problem might be. You know, I think that's really another invitation that we have, is to just find what those practices are. Meditation might be tough for some people, but that's obviously one of those practices. Breath work is one of those practices. Yoga could be one of those practices. There's tons of like great online yoga that you can do. Like whatever that thing is, fucking put on a playlist, have an ecstatic dance in your own room, you know, like let yourself like move this energy, because you're going to feel some shit. You know, there's going to be some stuff that's coming up.
Moving the energy. It's like, even though we're sitting at home, making sure that we stay in that movement. Like that's what I've been doing. Like every morning I throw this like Zen playlist on, and then I do my yoga and I go for a run. I literally go for a run in my driveway. I go a circular driveway, and I do laps in my driveway.
like you're a horse on a lunge line.
Yeah, guaranteed. And then I go in my garage and I do squats and I like lift my weights, and then like I imagine that I'm being Aubrey Marcus and I threw my ropes.
Yep. Ropes are good.
You know, but it's keeping that movement going, like not letting the energy be stagnant, right?
Yep.
I think that's a huge tip for people. What's like, I wanted to ask you just to get your feels like on the big picture here, like during this health crisis, and like what's your take on like this, on what's happening right now, like just as a big picture?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I mean, I like to, this is the thing that I like to think about. This is the way I like to look at it in the most productive way. Like, imagine two things, two scenarios, just hypothetical scenarios. You can believe them if you want to believe them, but
Sure.
Imagine that the universe created this situation just for you. Like, this was dialed in just for you. And imagine if you really believe that the universe created this exact situation just for you to grow. What would you do then? You know, like, how would you respond? And, you know, if you really adopt that and say, this is not happening to me, but this is happening for me, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's for me to slow down. Maybe it's for me to, you know, tap into my spiritual potential. Maybe it's for me to start working on that writing project I've always wanted, or start, you know, reaching out to my family more, or whatever. Like, imagining that it's happening for you, I think is really valuable. And then you can expand that to the collective and being like, imagine that this is happening for the world. Okay, so this is not happening to the world, this is happening for the world. And if it's happening for the world, what does that mean? You know, maybe it's time for the world to slow down. It's time for the world to take a look at what we're doing, take a look at the ramifications of all of our actions, this kind of rapacious need to plunder the earth's resources and to get more and more and more. I mean, more is the God that we've been worshiping as a society for years and years and years. It's always more and advancement and more and more and more. Maybe this is to be like, okay, like let's put more in the drawer, and let's look at what we already have, like the abundance that's already available, and look at what's really important, you know.
Hashtag so more in the drawer.
Yeah, put more in hashtag more in the drawer. That's it.
Another Aubreys.
Yeah. And that's the way I look at it. Now, whether, you know, you can say that, you can believe that if you want, and say that this is the earth, you know, like they say, the bunch of memes going around saying like, now go to your room and look at what you've done, you know, to all the people, like, this is time to go to timeout, everybody. Like, everybody's in timeout. And maybe that is Gaia speaking and doing it. But even if you adopt that perspective, it's going to be the most valuable perspective that you can have to take a look at how you can alchemize the situation into the greatest benefit for you and for everybody else, so that we make sure that individually and collectively we come out of this thing stronger, better, wiser, more compassionate, more powerful, more loving than when we went in.
Yeah, and being able to take the blinders off, see the illusion that we've been living in, right? And be able to, oh man, that's so great. I had another question I wanted to ask you. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you, because I definitely actually got to talk to you about this. But I saw recently that you stepped down as CEO of On It, and are now going to be focusing on some new things. So how is that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting timing, and it's funny because like apparently there's a lot of CEOs that step down, because I keep getting messages like,
dude, I saw that too.
I was like, how come you and 220 other CEOs step down? Like, I don't fucking know. I'm not talking to them. Like people imagine like there's a wizard that comes around in robes that comes to all the CEOs.
Yeah, they got to add you to that list of like all the CEOs that step down. It's like, it's a conspiracy, Aubrey.
Yeah, seriously. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't get any fucking phone calls from the Illuminati.
You didn't get that memo, did you?
No, I didn't know. I'm just, you know, really it's, On It has been, you know, something I'm incredibly proud to have birthed. You know, I think taking care of our home, you know, our physical body, through the exercise and through all the natural doctors that we have, and plus the supplements and the foods and everything that we put out there, and the mindset, you know, that's been something I'm really passionate about. But I feel like I've given my gift to that field in the best way that I can. And so the natural progression was for me to start focusing on other things, you know, and that's, all right, what is my gift that I can give to the psyche, and what's my gift that I can give to emotional health and spiritual health? And it was just time for me to transition from focusing on giving the gift to the body, because there's a ton of really brilliant people out there. And I feel like with my book and with the company, you know, I've given, there'll still be more obviously, but I've given the majority of my gift, my medicine, to that facet. And now I'm more curious about, all right, you know, let's focus on these other different aspects of our expression. So I got another book that I'm writing on the mindset.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so that's going to be great. It's called Master Your Mind, Master Your Life, and working on that hard. And there's just other things that I'm being just drawn to. And it was just really me listening, you know, listening to where my heart was pulling me, you know. And I think a lot of times we try to push, you know, like push for something, like I'm going to push for more money, or I'm going to push for this success, or push for this goal. But if we get quiet and we get still, we'll kind of feel where we're being pulled. And then it's just up to us to listen to see if we're going to answer that call. And it was just the right time, man. And it just so happens that it happened right before this whole crisis went down, which is interesting, but also a great proving ground for our new CEO. You know, he gets to lead on it through this situation. And of course, I'm there to support, and I'm still always going to be involved. I'm still the founder and the owner and the chairman, but nonetheless, he gets to show up as a leader, you know, and in a way that's beautiful timing as well, because everybody gets to look to him on how they're going to lead this enterprise. Exactly. And he's got to make tough choices, you know. I mean, a lot of employees, we own like 8 yoga studios, you know, so obviously you can't teach yoga in a studio right now. So we got a gym, and there's a lot of people that we're taking care of, that, you know, there's tough decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, I was going to ask, it's been as with every industry right now, including my own, it's like, has it been affecting your employees and like how you're getting food and nutrition to the places that you offer it at? Like, how's that going?
Well, we're still able, because we supply grocery stores, we're still considered an essential business. So we have the employees in the warehouse can still volunteer to show up, and we're paying them extra because it's almost like hazard pay to some degree, right? So they mask up and they glove up, and they're still packing boxes and delivering food and delivering supplies to both the grocery stores and people. And that's going to continue. So there, in that line, it's good. But on the other side, it's just, there's a lot of jobs that can't be done from home. And so there's a lot of people that we're just doing our best to keep supporting them through this process. And I'm just grateful to everybody who's still, you know, shopping it on it and supporting that, so we can support as many of our employees through this process as possible, because it's fucking affecting everybody, man. Like everybody. Like one of the people in my Fit for Service mastermind, like he really has a great business. He delivers fresh seafood to restaurants, and he's crushing it. He lives on the East Coast, and he's delivering like the best sushi grade seafood. Well, fuck, like the restaurants aren't open. You know, like he can't even do his job. It's like so many different things. And I just became aware of that today. I was like, oh shit, like you're really in trouble, huh? He's like, yeah, I'm fucking, this is really bad. And I'm like, yeah. And it's because you think of the servers, you know, obviously the wait staff and the servers,
every level,
but it's crossing every level. And that means that it's going to hit the fishermen. It's going to go down the line. Like we've never seen anything like this that's so universally affecting everybody, you know? So it's just how much compassion, how much support can we give people through these times? You know, that's just the question. How much of our medicine and support can we offer to help everybody, because everybody fucking needs it.
And it's forcing us to become very creative. Somebody said to me the other day that really moved me, just this, it could be called an Aubreyism. It was, if you're having trouble going within right now, go without and help someone else.
Yep.
And that moved me to think like, oh yeah, like being able to observe the beauty in humanity as we can see how it's just drawn, even though we're supposed to be separated right now and not, you know, 6 feet apart or whatever, like there's like this closeness that we're getting closer and closer to each other to come up with ways to really experience resiliency together.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
And I think the more that we continue to push that through in our own daily practices, the quicker we're gonna move through this crisis and witness a better world for tomorrow.
I agree, man. I mean, resistance creates adaptation, you know, and it creates the impulse for us to change and for us to transform. You know, it's like we either change and transform from one of two forces. It's either inspiration or desperation, you know, and a lot of us have been moved by inspiration, but sometimes we coast. You know, I know both of us, me and you, have both coasted in our lives. You know, we've had stuff we could do and things, but we'll just chill for a little bit and coast. But like, what I feel now is like, fuck, all right, my time for coasting is done. You know what I mean? Like, there's no time to coast right now. Like, I need to be writing the best stuff I can write. I need to be putting out as many lives as I can. You know, offering as much guidance as I can. Like, we put together this financial support, like, to help people figure out ways to make money on their own. It's called like I'm calling it the Indepreneurs. We put that out, and we're just trying to put out as much stuff as we can, because this is the time when everybody really needs us. And so, you know, for me, even someone who is largely moved by inspiration, the desperation of the situation just brings out that level of compassion and love that calls forward the best in me. And I think I'm seeing that in so many fucking places. You know, it's really beautiful. It's really the silver lining within this tragedy that we're all experiencing.
I saw that you're going live every day to keep the vibes high.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's just something I can do. You know, I mean, it's funny, and like, I've hardly gone live before, but like, I was like, what can I do? And in this period of like, I was laying in bed when this first started. I'm like, what can I do? And I was kind of overwhelmed. And really, the answer is you just do your best. Like, everybody just do your best. You know, it's not about like, we're not going to beat coronavirus. We're not going to like change the economic world, but we can all do our best. And if everybody does their best, well, that's absolutely the only thing that we can focus on. You know, and that's what I think everybody can focus on. We can get overwhelmed by trying to imagine what the impact is that's going to be, but fuck that. Like, just do your best. And that's as good as anybody can ever ask, and anybody can ever want.
End quote. That was a good closing Aubreysm right there.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you checking in with me today, man. And it's really good to hear your thoughts and your words. So I'm gonna close it on that one and just say it's been a pleasure to check in and chat with you and catch up. And likewise,
brother. Likewise.
You,
and I can't wait to catch up at Hugapalooza. It's
going
Hugapalooza,
and also an episode of us telling our most ridiculous psychedelic stories.
Yes, please. Let's go deep. Let's do it on psychedelics too, just in case we want to have.
It has to be on the come down, because otherwise, if I'm peaking and I'm trying to tell you a story, I'm just gonna be like, bro, I have no idea what to tell you.
Live psychedelic experience.
Oh God, that would be really funny. All right, my brother.
All right, brother.
Well, you take care of yourself, and we'll check in soon. Love you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. So much love.
Peace, bro.
Later.